When my Aunt Catherine died, I was very close to her, and I went to Charlotte, North Carolina for her funeral. This was a few years ago. She was one of the last of my dad's sisters still living. My Aunt Loretta, very close to Catherine, was also there. It was sad, but when you thought back about Cocky, that's what we called her, there were so many wonderful stories about her that after the wake, a group of cousins, and I was one of them, and our Aunt Loretta went over to the Caribou coffee shop. We got a big booth where we could all sit. And I looked at my aunt, and I wanted to talk about Cocky. I wanted to talk about the stories about her, but she didn't. Now, she would have never have said that, but the look on her face told me that she did not want to talk about her sister right then. Instead, she turned to her son-in-law and she said, "Bob, I bet Ellouise would love to hear about your Aunt Rosie. Could you tell her a few of those stories? Ellouise, you don't know Aunt Rosie." And I said, "No, I don't." "Well, listen to this. Bob's going to introduce you to her." Bob sat up a little bit straighter, and it was almost as though he had been on cue. He leaned across the table and he said, "I tell you, Ellouise, my aunt is the cheapest woman you'd ever meet in your life. I don't know whether it's because of the Depression, that she was a young woman during the Depression, or what it is, but she can't bring herself to spend a dime. And it's not that she doesn't have a dime. She's got lots of dimes. She could buy you and me and not even miss the money. But if she walked in here right now through that front door over there dressed so pitiful as she does, you would get up and run over there and offer to buy her coffee. And what's more, she'd take it from you." Well, we all started laughing, and they knew these stories. I could tell it, but they were new to me. And I just was sort of saying, more. What about her? Listen, she lives down in York, South Carolina. That's where we're from. You know, we live down there too. And she drives a 1976 Chevrolet, a 25 or 30-year-old car. And she's not about to give up as long as the motor will turn over and it'll go. Why, it is so banged up and rickety you wouldn't believe it. And the headliner has come loose and it's hanging down behind her neck. It is a wonder she can see out the back window. In fact, I think she can't see out the back window. She has to use the side mirrors. Well, she called me the other day and said, "Bob, I just want to let you know, I've found a new filling station." "Well, where, Aunt Rosie?" "Out on the highway. It was the other night. It was raining. And I was out in my car and I noticed that we were almost out of gas. So I pulled in and stopped at the pump." Now, the young man came out to pump my gas. He said, "No, lady, don't get out of the car. Don't get out in this rain. I'll pump your gas for you." And I looked in my purse and I took out a $5 bill. And I said, "I only want $5 worth. Just $5 worth now." And he started to pump the gas. I could hear it rolling in to the back of the car. I had out my $5 bill when he came to the window, and I reached up to hand it to him. And he says, "Oh, no, ma'am. I'm not going to take your money." I said, "Well, here's the money. I wanted $5 worth, and I even put $1 there for your trouble." He said, "Oh, no. I wouldn't think of taking your money. In fact, I pumped you $10 worth, and you just go on and have a nice night." "Aunt Rosie, you didn't let him do that, did you? You didn't take his gas that way, did you?" "Well, of course I did. I wasn't about to hurt his feelings. He was giving it to me. And you know something, Bob? I'm recommending that station, and I think I'm going to start using him right regular. Bob, she is fabulous. How old is she? Well, she must have been about 84 when she did that little trick, and she turned 85 last summer. And this was the thing now, Ellouise. She was turning 85, and she got it into her head that she wanted to go to Disneyland. Can you believe it? She wanted to go to Disneyland for her birthday. Now, Rosie has never flown, and she was a little bit afraid to get on the airplane. She called me, and I said, Rosie, I can't go down there. I got to stay at my job. You know, I'm sorry, honey, but I just can't go with you. So then she called our cousin Sam. Now, Sam's no spring chicken. He was about 90 at the time. And she called him, and she convinced him to go with her. She even went so far as to say, Sam, if you'll come with me, I'll buy the ticket for you. And he agreed. Now, to tell you the truth, I think he only agreed because he wanted to see if she would really put down that money. And she did. Now, they flew down on U.S. Air, leaves out of Charlotte out there. And they were flying one of those new Airbus planes. I have to tell you, Sam had never been on an airplane either. But Rosie talked him into it, saying, you know, together, Sam, we'll make it. We'll figure it out. I have never been on an airplane. You've never been on an airplane, but we'll get around. We've lived a long time. We can make this. Well, they sat near the front, and Rosie was on the aisle. And she told me this later. She said, you know, when the stewardess came down our way, I was just being friendly. And I said, well, hello there. And she said, hey. And I said, you know, I've never been on an airplane before. And she said, you haven't? And I said, well, that's nothing. He's 5 years older than I am, and he's never been on an airplane either. This is our first time for us. Well, she turned around, and when she went back up to the front, she announced it over the loudspeaker that there were two people up in front that had never been on an airplane before. This was their first flight, and they were flying with U.S. Air. Well, there was a round of applause in the airplane. She had us wave our hands so that everybody could see who we were. You would have thought we were celebrities. Everybody on that plane was looking at us and smiling and waving. Well, that felt pretty good. It was very encouraging as the plane came to life and started shimmering and shaking, and then moved down the runway and zoomed those engines and just took right up off the ground. We were flying. After we'd gotten high enough so that he could leave the front, the pilot came back. He did. Good-looking man, his uniform, young man. He had strong hands, I noticed. Big enough to, you know, fly this plane. And he leaned over and he said, congratulations to Sam and congratulations to me. And then, do you know what he did? He gave each one of us a pair of silver wings. We pinned them right on, our little silver wings, first-time flyers. I said, you know, this is so nice. It's so nice of you to do this. Thank you so much, especially because we're on our honeymoon. You should have seen Sam's face. All I could hope was that he wouldn't say anything. Well, they just rocked back. You're on your honeymoon. And I said, yeah, we are. We decided that we'd go to Disney World. Sam here's 90. I'm 85. So we're going to celebrate our honeymoon at Disney World. He turned to the stewardess. He said, bring this happy couple some wine to celebrate on me. We're soaring along. They called out, said we're at 30,000 feet, drinking wine, tasting good. What a time we were having. It was fun. It was fun. Oh, Bob. Bob, she is wonderful. Can I tell that story? Is it okay with you if I tell your story? Yeah. Tell it. Tell it. She's such a character. We all tell her stories around here. Everybody has somebody like Aunt Rosie in their family. They're always telling the stories on them. Sometime later, time to leave the Caribou coffee shop. I got up and I walked down to the end of the table where my Aunt Loretta was sitting. And I said, oh, honey, thank you so much. I just love Bob's Aunt Rosie. Those stories are so wonderful. I knew you'd like them, Ellouise. Catherine always loved those stories. They were her favorites. Thank you so much for stopping by to hear a story today. I hope you've got characters like Rosie in your family and that you're out there telling their story.